Do not be afraid. Tonight we have with us Blake and Bailey Ramirez. Blake is what, 17, 34, something like that? How old are you? Yeah? No, how old are you really? 9. And Bailey, you're 14. Okay. Bailey is a baptized Catholic, but she is going to be confirmed. Blake was not yet baptized, and so he will be baptized, he will be confirmed, and receive his Holy Communion. And in a few minutes, Blake is going to do something that takes a lot of courage. And so I'm going to tell you, don't be afraid. You know what they say when people tell you not to be afraid? Be afraid. In a few minutes, Blake is going to stand up here and he is going to speak his baptismal promises to all of us. We'll all have a chance to do that a few minutes later when we renew our own baptismal promises. But how many of us would have the courage to stand up here alone and do that? And he's 8 years old. 9 years old. Thank you for correcting me. He's 9 years old. There's a big difference between 8 and 9. That's really important. It is. Do not be afraid. Blake and Bailey, to be Catholic. Do not be afraid to embrace your faith. Do not be afraid to worship God with us, because we love you, because we want you to be a part of us. Fear can do such difficult, terrible things to us. The first thing it can do is freeze us in our tracks like deer in headlights. When the two Marys saw that earthquake and the angels, and that Jesus wasn't in the tomb, that's exactly what they felt. They were frozen right there in their tracks. And the first thing the angel says, don't be afraid. And then the angel says, now go. Go and meet the others who are in Jerusalem and tell them Jesus is not here. Tell them to go to Galilee. And so that's what they did. And even though they had been very afraid, they were going to go proclaim good news. Good news. How many of us are afraid to share our faith? How many of us feel fear when we might be given an opportunity to talk about God with somebody who might feel far away from God and may need to have an invitation? How many of us might be afraid to say, I know where we can find God. He's here. He is not far away from us. His presence is far more real than our minds can know. Do not be afraid to be Catholic. Do not be afraid to come to Mass. Do not not be afraid that others might look at us and say, we're goofy, or this is ridiculous, or it's irrelevant. Don't be afraid of that. Instead, live and proclaim the good news that Christ is present. And then there was another moment in the gospel where this time Jesus said, do not be afraid. And look what they were like this time. I can remember when I was 9 years old. I was still a little... You're probably not afraid of thunderstorms, are you, Blake? You probably aren't afraid of them at all. No, that's good. I'm glad you're shaking your head. No, that's good. I was. I was really afraid of them. I love them now, but And I can remember being afraid, especially the one time there was a tornado that went over our house. We were all in the basement. I can remember holding my father's... I was still a little kid, and I was holding my father's waist so tight he couldn't hardly breathe. And I was clinging to my dad. And the two Marys were clinging to the body of Christ. Afraid to let go. Like somebody who has just is dangling from a branch above on a cliff. How often might we be afraid? So full of fear. Maybe as we watch a loved one suffer and die. We become afraid when all of a sudden a violent act violates the peace of our day. And we wonder what's happening to the world. And all of a sudden we might find ourselves wondering, what can we cling to when we are afraid? I can just see Jesus gently bending over, touching them on the heads. Do not be afraid. It's okay. It's okay. I'm here. I have not abandoned you. I have not left you all alone in the violence of the storm. I am with you. So Blake and Bailey, we're going to welcome you into the church. You're going to become a Catholic, Blake. You already are, but you're going to be confirming your faith. That takes a lot of courage. And I'm so proud of both of you. And if I could give you any advice at all, it would very simply be, do not be afraid.